We turn for more to Scott Painter, the founder and the CEO of TrueCar.com. TrueCar provides pricing information to consumers and dealers and partners with AAA, American Express, and Bank America, among others. Last year, Scott was a finalist for Ernst & Young's Entrepreneur of the Year award. So congratulations on that. But let's get down, Scott, to the car sales numbers here. What's going on in the U.S. market? Ford getting a leg up on GM. Is this because it's got new models, because it kept its prices higher? Does it have a better reputation since it didn't go bankrupt? What's the story?
Well, certainly I think the story for the U.S. auto market is there's a strong rebound in general. We've seen our sixth straight month over 12 million cars per year at an annualized rate. This month actually looks to be about a 13 million car month. So even though you've got some of the aftershocks coming through the system as a result of supply being cut and also some of the production lines being stopped, certainly overall it's a very good message. I think in the case of Ford, they've had a long-term strategy, and macro factors definitely affect how these different large automakers sort of jockey for position amongst one another. Ford is very well positioned here, and I think that the big takeaway is that if you look at what is really selling right now, it is in response to higher gas prices. And Ford and small vehicle sales have been doing very well. Ford is positioned well relative certainly to Toyota and Honda in this case because of all of the supply shortages. So you'll see Ford surge in this market, and I think that, you know, it's not a bad story for GM either. GM in their Cruise sales and some of their other small vehicles are also up 17 to 18% across the board.
What about the margins? Because the small cars obviously are good for consumers when gas prices are high, but the car makers, don't they still make more on the Expeditions, the Explorers, the Yukons, etc.?
Sure. There's no question that the age-old story in the American auto industry for sure is that the highest margin vehicles are the larger vehicles, the trucks, the pickups, the SUVs, the big vehicles that tend to consume more fuel. The smaller vehicles are also now starting to at least be built with a better profit motive in mind. And I think Ford certainly, more than most of the other U.S. car makers, got out in front of this and has been on this for a number of years, certainly since Mullally's introduction.
Let's talk about Toyota for a second. It almost seemed like Toyota was becoming an American car maker. I mean, certainly they employ a lot of Americans in their factories here. Do they have a bigger disadvantage after the earthquake in Japan? Do they have more supply chain issues because of that?
Well, I think their flagship product, which is the Prius, is predominantly manufactured in Japan. And certainly when the Prius goes into only having, 13,000, 14,000 vehicles in inventory, when you had almost 18,600 Priuses sold in the month of March, you're definitely going to feel that pinch. And it also showed, I think, the earthquake, that the entire global automotive production system is very reliant on Japan at a supplier level as well. But Toyota is certainly going to be the most impacted, Honda as well, in terms of some of their flagship products like the Honda Fit.
And GM and Ford, what are the effects to these, what we think of as pure play American car makers, but also, of course, get parts from all over the world? What are the effects going to be on those car companies?
Well, in some cases, you've had to idle plants, and many of those plants are now coming back online. So if you can't get a part or a module that goes into a vehicle, you got to stop manufacturing. So unfortunately, you're going to see, I think, the April numbers for production fall from what they were in March. However, currently sales remain strong. We still see over a 13 million vehicle sales month coming. So I think that while you may see some shortages in supply, prices will certainly go up. I think globally production was curbed about 10 to 11%, and in general you're going to see prices rise about that same amount. I don't think you're going to have a problem, however, if you're out in the market looking for a car. You just may not be able to get all the options or the accessories that you were hoping for, just because the selection is going to be a little bit more limited.
Hey, Scott, we got the jobs number in today. People are kind of still debating that. It was better than expected as far as hires, but average hourly income, wages were unchanged from last month. On the other side of the equation, though, you need job security. Obviously, you want to have a job before you buy a car. But most people need credit as well. You're not going to walk in and just plunk down $60,000 to buy a new Yukon. How is the credit picture looking for consumers out there in this country?
Well, in fact, I think the credit and unavailable nature of credit back in sort of the last 24 to 48 months has really been a big part of why car sales had fallen off so dramatically in the first place. And so you're right in pointing out that availability of consumer credit is a huge issue. I think it's more available than it has been. Those markets are certainly loosening up. And I think that we want to see some strength in the housing market because that is what underscores a lot of those interest rate and a lot of that available lending. So in the case of the macro factors, the price of gasoline, the jobs market, and the housing market are all very big macro trends that we keep an eye on. And I do think that in general, if you're looking to buy a car, the credit is available right now.
Scott, we appreciate you dropping by.